a very traditional Irish dessert, which happens to be a great all-round dish, highly, highly nutritious, is a Carrageen pudding. Very, very simple little one. It's kind of like a little blancmange. Carrageen being a type of seaweed. It's named after Carrageenan head up in Donegal. And what I'm going to use here is, now it's hard to measure seaweeds because they change a lot, and sometimes you'll have to add a little bit more, but a good indicator for me anyway is about 700 ml of skimmed milk is what I'm using here. You could use whole fat milk, no problem at all there, and even finish with cream, but I'd rather a bit lighter for myself. And then I kind of, with the dried Carrageen, that's how you'll generally get it, a good closed fist full of Carrageen to that quantity. Generally works out quite well. If you find it's not thickening up, it's no problem, just add maybe a little bit more Carrageen into the mix as it's cooking. It's a pretty forgiving recipe. And thing, I'm going to use some nice blackberries. I have some bought ones here, but I also have some frozen wild ones which I'm going to use to flavour the pudding itself, because the blackberries are all in season now as well. And a little bit of vanilla, and just sweeten with a tiny piece of honey. Again, to make this, you'll need a stainless steel or non-reactive pot. Don't use aluminium or something like that. It's not quite, it doesn't work out quite well. You can kind of get a kind of a funny taste, because whenever you're using any kind of acidic kind of things like milks and things like that with lactic acid, it reacts to the aluminium. So stainless steel is the best way to go. I'm going to pop my skimmed milk into my pot, and then I'm going to just pop all my Carrageen in there. And I've washed that quite well, and it's kind of rehydrated itself just a little bit. So just going to dab that around there. And then into that, I'm going to put about a tablespoon, or about a teaspoon, a generous teaspoon of vanilla extract. And I'll use about a tablespoon of honey just to sweeten it a little bit. So just let the honey melt off the spoon there. I'm going to put the blackberries in for a while. And then you just let that simmer away nice and slowly. The seed will start breaking out. The little the thickening agent, they're called actually Carrageenans, will start to come out of the mixture and start to thicken it up, and you'll see it thickening. When it thickens, it's going to set. It's not really, but just keep letting it simmer away until you get there. So I'm just going to let that cook away for the time being. And then at the moment also, I'm going to just mold this a couple of ways. I'm going to use these little silicone molds that I had, but kind of turn it out like kind of like a panna cotta or something. But also, I'm going to make one in glass as well, and kind of put it in the glass, kind of laying it partially on its side, just to show you a different kind of representation with it as well. Again, I'm just going to let that cook away there itself now, and get on. So my Carrageen has been cooking. It's about cooking at a very, very low simmer for about 20 minutes, thereabouts. And you'll suddenly start to see, all of a sudden it starts thickening up. Now, low temperatures is what this is all about. Now, I'm just going to gently pull that off the heat. Keep it fairly warm though, because this stuff sets at about 30-40 degrees even. So it's quite a heat stable product, or a dessert. So into another pot, I'm just going to get some of my blackberries. And some of these ones some of these are fresh blackberries. Some of them are frozen, that were just picked a little bit earlier. So I'm just going to, the ones that are mainly the frozen ones, which are lovely wild blackberries, I'm going to just gently cook those down. And just going to add a splash of water into that, literally about a tablespoon of water just to get them started. And as they're cooking down, what I'm going to do is crack an egg. Good organic egg into a separate bowl. Again, stay with stainless steel, very important with this. Give that a little bit of whisk. Now you don't have to use the egg, but it just kind of gives a bit more richness to the dish. And then what I'm going to do is strain the Carrageen into the egg. And you want to push all of those bits through the strainer, getting all those nutrients, because again, this is an extremely nutrient dense ingredient. And even with the skimmed milk, you're getting a good hit of vitamins and things like that. So we want to strain that through onto the egg. So now it takes just a few minutes just to kind of work it in there. Just as your blackberries are just cooking down nice and gently. Again, you're more just kind of breaking up those blackberries into a very, very light compote, just as you're straining through this onto the egg. Wooden spoon is best for this as well. It's actually funny, sometimes in the restaurants you have people, Carrageen sets, it doesn't set it, this isn't a panna cotta, but some people think it kind of looks like a panna cotta and start doing this wobble test with it, but it's kind of a more firmer texture to it. But anyhow, you want to try push as much of the Carrageen through the strainer as you can. And again, all seaweeds, I particularly think they're one of the best sources of iodine in your diet. So, now at this stage you might even find that the thing will start to be trying to thicken in front of you. As you're simmering it, as I said, just keep going, it will eventually start to thicken. Then you mix that gently through your egg. Now, into those blackberries that are just lightly stewing. Just kind of break those up a little bit before you add in the Carrageen. Just get that nice juice out of it. And then what I'm going to do is pour this Carrageen kind of custard into those blackberries. Now the thing with these blackberries is, once this goes in, you can't let this boil. So, because if it boils, you're going to end up kind of with a scrambled egg and you're going to lose that lovely smooth texture. So kind of crush the blackberries first a little bit, so I'm getting a nice piece of juice out of there. You could strain this, but I think, you know, there's seeds, they're grand. And again, this is all nutrient as well. So, now what I'm going to do is, with that egg, I'm going to just strain that into the blackberry. But as I said, and I can't emphasize this enough, all you're doing is mixing this through and bringing it up to a low temperature, about 70 degrees thereabouts, because everything in this, other than the egg, is almost cooked. So, and do not let this boil. So don't go walk off on this one. And you're going to get this absolutely lovely blackberry, purpley color mixture. But again, lowest temperature you have. And there we go. I'm gonna have a little taste of that. For me, you could add a little bit more honey, but I don't want it too sweet. The way I see it is, you can always sprinkle on more sugars and things like that if you feel you want them at the end. But there we have it. That's enough cooking there, all cooked. And then it's just a case of popping this into its molds. So, as I said, I'm going to do one of these, and what I'm going to do is spoon it into a cup. You'll actually find this will start setting quite quickly. So I'm just going to gently spoon this into a cup or to my glass, but I'm keeping it at an angle. Okay, I can just tidy it up in a second, and I'm just going to leave that there at that angle to set, because I wanted to set at an angle. And then the remainder of this, I'm just going to fill up these little molds. So when your molds are all filled up, pop it into the fridge. I'll let it set, and then it's only a case of finishing off this dessert. Again, as I said, it's quite a forgiving dessert. Not a lot to go wrong with this. The only thing is that if you wish to have it a little bit sweeter, just you could add a little bit more honey as you're cooking and things. But again, for me, I don't want it too sweet. I'd rather that kind of nice. I let my sweet sauces and things like that take care of the sweetness in the dish. Because you find that if you start reducing a bit of sugar in your diet, you start losing quite a lot of the taste for it. So, that's my Carrageen. It's interesting actually because that's already set in my bowl. So I'm quite confident that you won't have any difficulty. And sometimes if you're not sure, you can put it onto a cold plate and allow it to set and just kind of do a setting test. But in my experience with Carrageen, if it thickens the milk, it will set. It's a very, very potent setting agent, Carrageen. It's just a case of just taking your time, nice slow cookery to get the nutrients, to get those polysaccharides, I think it is, out of the Carrageenan, which will then start to set with the milk. And just nice, clean stainless steel is the way to go. Anyway, I'm going to put those in the fridge and get back, and then it's only a case of just garnishing up my desserts. So, having allowed my Carrageen to go cold and set in the cold room, I have two little types of Carrageen here. The ones I've just put into my little molds. As you can see, this stuff unmolds very, very easily. I'll just take one of those out of the mold. And it's a cinch really. I'm going to pop that on a little plate there. And also the one I put in the glass there, just for a slightly different presentation. Now, with this, I'm just going to serve this very, very simply with some nice fresh blackberries and maybe a little bit of Greek yogurt. Doesn't need anything else more than that. You could drizzle it over with a bit of honey if you wanted a bit of extra, sweetness on the dish. But personally, I really don't think it needs much. But again, that's just me. So for the one in the glass, just top it up with plenty of berries. Maybe a couple of spoonfuls of Greek yogurt. Dab it down a bit. And I'm just going to garnish this with some lemon verbena leaf. And again, maybe a little edible flower. And that's one of them done. I think that was off camera as I was doing that. Oh dear. But there we have it. And then if you want to just do it on the plate, with a little molded one. Again, maybe just a little teaspoon of Greek yogurt. I'm using a 0 fat or a very, very low fat Greek yogurt. And then with that, just get a different spoon there. Just garnish it up with a few of the blackberries just thrown randomly around the plate. Again, don't get too caught up on how it looks. Maybe a couple of little flowers. And a couple of little verbena leaves. Again, if you have them, just a bit of mint or something like that. If you don't have anything, just don't use anything. Not a big deal. But it's a nice, quite nutritionally dense, very good little dessert. And something quite interesting as well. A little spoon there in the back. There we go, our little Carrageen pudding. Lovely traditional little type of dessert, but still very, very simple and well worth trying.